To home can your ground beef, you have to get the type of ground beef that you like. The highest I'll actually go is 80-20 because I want more flavor. But the lowest I go is about 70-20, or I'm sorry, 70-30. Yeah, 70-30. And what you want to do is you first want to ground your beef in a skillet. The reason why is because ground beef has already been pulled from other meat mixtures, and it can actually hide some air bubbles in there. So you always want to make sure that the ground beef is cooked fully before you actually can it. It is completely different if you do cubed beef or anything else like that. That can go in raw, but for ground, cook it fully. And then add any seasoning that you want, and I'm using taco seasoning to taste. Now once it's been cooked, you want to drain the grease, and then you're going to go ahead and put it in very clean jars. Now I have a canning funnel that will actually help me do this, and that's what the green thing is, so you can actually put your food in there. And you can give it about an inch ahead of space, and it's right below the bottom rim that you're actually going to use. Now in this video, I'm actually using extra broth that I actually had to actually can this, but on a normal day basis, I usually use water. And only fill up to 1 inch, again, right below the last bottom of the rim. And then you want to get a butter knife, and you want to stab the meat. Pretty much all you're trying to do is get rid of the air bubbles and make sure that everything's good to go. You want to make sure your meat is covered as well, and it's still an inch of headspace. And then once you're actually done with that, you want to actually wipe the rim, and I usually use vinegar to do that, and wipe the rim of the jar. And while you're wiping it, you want to feel if there's any nicks or bumps, because then that's going to tell you if it's going to siphon over, or if there's going to be, or if you just need to replace the jar entirely, because that does happen. Jars do get old, and they do have problems. Now there are two types of lids. Most people would actually use the metal lid because they're a little bit more convenient and a little easier to use. The plastic lids, which I don't have a video for that one right now, are a little bit more in depth, and I might do a video for that one later. So you want to go ahead and get the canning lids, which you can get at any store. It can be a grocery store, it could be a superstore, it could be even like your lumber store. They all have it. I would actually suggest looking for rims with lids. That way you know that you have everything that actually is brand new and it fits and it's good to go. I have a whole collection of it, so when I look at my rim, I got to make sure that there's no nicks or bumps, because that can cause a little bit of problems as well with the meat. That's another reason why I said for beginners, just go ahead and get the whole new set of lids with rims. And then you're going to make it finger tight when you put it on. And then you're going to go ahead and place it into your pressure canner. You're only going to fill your pressure canner as much as you need to. It does not need to cover the jar, because you're not canning it through you're not water bathing it. You're pressure canning it. So you want to make sure that you have enough water to build up the steam and to keep the steam while you're actually you're canning your meat. Typically, I do not label my jars until after I'm done canning, but because I have two types of meat that I'm canning, I want to make sure I know which one is for what. I usually use the Italian meat for my spaghettis, and I use the taco meat for nachos and tacos. All right, so I have a Presto pressure canner, and it came with a 10-pound weight, and what you're looking at now is an air vent. When it comes to pressure, or when it comes to enough steam, you're going to see steam coming out of that vent, and you want a steady flow of steam. And once that happens, you're going to set a timer for 10 minutes. Once the 10 minutes is passed, that's when you're going to put the weight on that vent, and then you're going to see the pressure in the very back. You're going to see something that comes up for that. And when it does come up to pressure, when it finally does it, you see that there's a gauge there. I am actually at sea level, so I need 11 pounds of pressure. Usually when you're higher up in sea levels, you might have to go all the way up to 15. I will let you know, I have a gas stove, so I easily come up to 15 pounds of pressure, even though I have it on a very low heat. It's that will, when that little thing comes up, like you see it right now, that means that the pounds of the pressure has actually built up. Right now I'm pushing it in so you can see what it looks like. And it will start to build up pressure to the gauge, and that's what you're looking for. Now you see that I have a steady flow of steam coming up to pressure on this vent, and I'm going to go ahead and set a timer for 10 minutes. All right, once the timer has actually gone off, you're going to go ahead and get your weight. Higher climates you need more than 10 pounds, but mine came with a 10-pound weight. You can always request more through the canners that you do get, but you'll put the weight on the vent and allow it to come up, and then allow it to come up to pressure. And you see it there, my gauge is wanting to come up, and now it's there. Now my gauge will come up to 10 pounds of pressure as it slowly gets there. And as I mentioned before, my gas stove, even on low, will bring it all the way up to 15. As long as I don't hit over the 20 where it says caution, we'll be okay. It usually stays about 15, 17 pounds of pressure. I will note though that if you go below the pounds of pressure that you need for your climate, you need to bring it back up to pressure and then start the timer all over again. That's another reason why a lot of things are starting to go electronic, and they do sell those on Amazon. That makes it a lot easier. All you're doing for the Amazon part is, for the electric pressure canner, is you're going to wait for the steam, and it will tell you when it steams, and then you just turn in the secure button and you're done. It does all the stuff for you. You put your timer in, you don't even have to worry about it. That's going to be a lot easier for busy parents, and when I get a chance, I will buy one and show it to you. All right, now once it actually reaches the pounds of pressure that you need for pints, when it comes to beef, because there's no acidic in there, that's why it's very, very important that you know how much acidic you actually have. But for beef or no non-acidic food, you want, for pints, for my area, which is actually below, or it's actually sea level, and I believe every school 1,000 you add 5 minutes. I'm not sure, but I believe that's what it is. You can easily look that up online to find out. But because I am at sea level, my minutes are going to be 75 minutes for pints for ground beef, cooked ground beef, and 90 minutes for quarts. Once the time goes off, the only thing you do on the stove is just turn off the oven. You don't do anything until you turn off the stove, and then you leave the weight on, because you want the pounds of pressure to go all the way down to 0. If you don't do this, the jars will siphon and you've lost all that good work. Okay, now that it's down to 0, I'm going to go ahead and lift up my weight. Now I'm going to add another 10 minutes before I actually open it. And then I'm going to, after that, I moved it from the pressure canner onto my counter, but I placed a towel between it, because you do not want to put these hot jars on a cold counter. It will make it crack, and you'll lose all your work. You don't want to do that. As you can see, it is still cooking even after all the time I'm making it come down to pressure and even allowing it to cool. This is how hot it is. The next day, what I'm going to do, or once it cools off, and it usually takes about 12 hours, I will actually remove the rims. And the reason why you want to do that is to prevent a false seal. It could very easily have, something might have slipped in between the sill while you're cooking it, not even knowing it, and it could have actually lifted up the sill, and then air could have gotten in, and then due to humidity or other pressures that might have happened, it might have accidentally sealed again, and you would have had a false, like if it opened and say you had a jar stacked on top of it. So you had a jar stacked on top of that. That's why you're not supposed to stack a jar on top of jars. It would have actually allowed the air to get in, and then it would have created another seal, and then you would have actually gotten botulism. So it's a very, again, It could also have been done that with the rims. If you left the rim in, it could have done that too, where just it opened and then it sealed again. That's why you would remove the rim, and then when you actually get your food, you'll check to make sure that it's still sealed. So you can see that there was still grease in the meat, and that's fine because that just adds more flavor in my opinion. Actually, that is fat, and fat is actually good for your brain. So in your intestines, because that's what it's actually made of. So that's actually really good for you. And then you'll see that I'm going to lift it by the rim and make sure that it's sealed. And that's how you know it's a good seal. And that's how you make sure that when you actually grab it from your pantry or your cool dry place that you actually have, that's how you know it's still sealed and there's nothing that actually happened. Yes, I've actually come across a few jars where it's actually a can of pinto beans. I was able to lift it, and I'm always really careful when I do it because I don't know if it's if it looks if the seal is actually truly on there, or if it opened up during, maybe a false seal happened during the canning process. And I did actually have a jar of pinto beans, and it looked like it was sealed. And when I brought the jar near me, I kind of hold the very bottom to make sure that, if it does come off, then I'm good. I still have a steady hand on my food, and I lifted it up, and the lid came right off. I'm like, yep, and that one got tossed because that meant that I don't know how long that has been open. It looked like it was sealed, but because air got in there, it could have created botulism, and you can't taste or smell it for botulism, so you want to make sure it is sealed, and that's all it is, and that's how you check it. You just make sure that the lid's there. And then they have jar lids that you can actually use. You can use a church key, or you can use a mason jar lid that you can buy at Amazon for $5 to actually open those. And then once you actually open it, you do not want to keep those silver lids for another canning process. You can keep them if you want to use them for like storing stuff that does not need to be pressure canned, or if it's just going on the fridge, then you can keep that for that. But do not use them again for pressure canning or water bath canning.